I'm Carla Reeves, and this is Differently, a podcast where we explore the ins and outs of what becomes possible when we're willing to think, do, and show up differently to the moments of our everyday lives. What if we have to teach others how to be in relationship with us? My guest today talks about this very thing. She is Christina Furnival, the niece of my dear friend Sharon. She's a mom of two wild and wonderful kiddos, a licensed psychotherapist, the founder of ChristinaFurnival.com. She has a therapeutic motherhood blog called Real Life Mama. And she's a children's book author of a social emotional well-being series called Capable Kiddos. Her first book is The Not So Friendly Friend. Today, we talk about the personal story that inspired her writing this book, the profound principles behind this adorable children's book, and how it not only applies to kids, but to us as adults as we navigate friendship today. She shares what has helped her to blend many different passions and responsibilities to ensure she's honoring all the things that are on her heart to be and do. And we talk about the power of healthy boundaries, not only in friendship, but with our time and our energy, and how it's a gift we not only give ourselves, but we give to others, and so much more. Meet Christina. She's going to share a snippet from that adorable book right now.
If this kid was nice, she'd play and have fun. But if they were not, then she'd say, "All done. If you want to be kind, I'd be glad if you'd play. But if you don't treat me right, you can go on your way. I'll play with true friends who make me feel good and treat me with love, just as a friend should."
Hey, Christina, I'm so excited to have you on Differently. And I'm so excited that we were introduced to each other by a very dear friend of mine. And I just want to welcome you to the show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me, Carla. I'm super excited to be here today.
Good. So just to let the listeners know, Christina is the niece of a very, very dear friend of mine. And I was actually visiting my friend in Colorado late last year, and she pulls out this book from her coffee table and shared it with me as children's book. And I read it, and then she went on to tell me that that was her niece had published that. And I loved the book, and we immediately talked about having her on the podcast. And Christina and I met at the end of last year and just talked about having her here. So I'm really excited that we're here now. And I would love to just have you introduce yourself and share with the people listening, who are you and kind of what stage of life are you in, and share about the work that you're doing.
Definitely. Hi, everyone. I'm Christina Furnival. My Aunt Sharon introduced us, so thank you, Aunt Sharon. And I am a mom of two. I have two young kids. My daughter is 5 and she's in kindergarten, and my son just turned 4 right after Christmas, and he's in preschool. And so I have my hands full with them most days. He goes to preschool 2 days a week. So those 2 days are my magical get things done days and talk to Carla days. The rest of the time, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I am also a licensed professional clinical counselor. So I do therapy, and I've been in the field since 2009. And I always used to work with youth. That's where my passion lie when I started in the career. And I worked in community mental health. I worked in hospital programs, helping youth to overcome anxiety and depression, and work with ADHD and whatever kind of adjustments that they needed to make in their life, or whatever challenges they were going through. And then when I had my own children, I became a stay-at-home mom. And so I kind of stepped back from the workforce. But as much as I loved caring for my children, I felt like I was missing a piece of me. So I ended up finding an alternate avenue back into the therapy world, which is through a blog that I write called Real Life Mama. And I found my early experience of motherhood to be very jarring and a lot different than I had expected it to be. And I went through postpartum depression and anxiety, and I had never experienced any of that myself before. So I felt blindsided by the experience and the reality of motherhood. And so that blog was both an outlet to me as well as a space to let other moms know that it's not all Instagram perfect all the time, and it's okay if their life is challenging, and that is what real life is. And then with the blog, I kind of ventured into the world of writing. And like Carla said, most recently, I published in September of 2021 a children's book called The Not So Friendly Friend: How to Set Boundaries for Healthy Friendships. And I know we're going to talk about that later, so I'm not going to go into the details of that just yet. But I also, in March of 2020, before SHIT hit the fan, I applied to do online telehealth therapy in the evening. I wanted to get back into some therapy sessions and feel like I was keeping myself fresh. And so I applied to this program. I was credentialed and approved in March, right before everything shut down. And it was such a timing blessing, because then I was already set up to help people through what was about to happen. And so now I mainly work with adults, and I mainly work with moms. And so I have this nice mix of getting to be a stay-at-home mom during the day. I have my writing passion with this book and future books that are coming, my blog, and then I get to do therapy in the evening. So I feel like currently I have a very nice balance of getting to do all the things I want to do.
I love all of that. We have so many similar threads that I didn't know we had. But when I was a new mom, I left corporate America to be at home with my kids. That was like what I dreamed of doing. And I had the opportunity to stay at home. And then I started to, like, 8 months, my son was like 8 months old, my first son. And I started going a little crazy and feeling like I was losing my sanity. And I needed like some sort of creative outlet, or like I was kind of losing myself. And I started writing and journaling just to figure out how to be a happy mom. And that actually led to my first company, which was Sanity Journals, which was creating journals to help people through guided writing to, get their minds right, get healthier inside, like all those things. And that was literally my sanity for a lot of years while they were little. Like I got to do that, and I got to be at home, but kind of use my business and creative brain too, which actually helped me to be a better mom. Because
Absolutely.
I was, sort of tapping into all those different parts and needs of myself. And so I love your story, and you're like, are bringing back all these memories of, I remember like going to meetings, like with my carrier in my arm, my baby carrier, like I would take him to some of those business meetings to get my journals printed and things like that, because it was just a big blend, but I loved it.
That's wonderful. And I love that you recognize that something was missing and you did something about it, and that you had the opportunity to be able to do that. And warrior mama, baby in tow, making things happen. That's very impressive.
So fun. Such good memories. And you're right. It's such a challenging, tumultuous, wonderful time. It's such a blend of so many things when you're navigating being a new mom. So tell us a little bit about, like, how did the book, like, I want to hear a little bit about your journey as an entrepreneur and mom. Like, if there are any things you want to particularly share, because there may be people listening that are either navigating, wanting to do their own thing, or just juggling a lot of things. And so I think there are probably some things in your entrepreneurial journey that you can share that would mean something to others. And then I'm curious about how you told me the story of how your book came about. And so I'd love for you to share that too.
I certainly can do that. Yeah. So when it comes to entrepreneurship, it's so interesting because I never, ever would have thought that I would be on this path. I like to say that I'm not an idea generator, but I'm an idea tweaker. You give me something and I can figure out how to make it better. That's a skill set of mine. Coming up with the ideas isn't always what my brain is looking to do. And the idea of starting a business and figuring out all the behind the scenes of what a business entails is also something that's not in my wheelhouse. I didn't study that. When I went to Vanderbilt University for undergraduate schooling, I studied Spanish literature and child development. And I also was pre-med at the time. I thought I wanted to be a pediatric doctor. And then when I realized that wasn't for me, / did really poorly in pre-med classes, I knew I needed to kind of find a different helping profession. And that's where I kind of rerouted myself into the therapy space. And so then my master's is in therapy. So I have zero background in marketing, anything social media, any finances. Like, it's a whole new world to me. And I still feel like I don't really know that much. But I think one of my strengths that has supported me through this is that I'm not afraid of failing. I'm not afraid of trying something and it going wrong. And so when I started the blog, for example, I told my husband about the idea of doing a blog on, maybe it was like a Friday. And by Monday, I had social media handles. I had bought a website. I had signed up for a blog doing course, and I had my first blog post on the internet. And my husband was like, "What even just happened? How did you do all that?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I just did." And he's like, "Well, what happens if it doesn't make money?" And I'm like, "Well, then I'll figure that out when that time comes." And honestly, the blog hasn't really made money. I've gotten paid to do a couple sponsored posts, but that has been more of just a passion project, I guess, at this point. And then it's led into the author world in a way that I couldn't have imagined. But similarly, with writing the books, I kind of just take chances. And so that would be my advice if someone has this desire to do something different, and it's not a huge risk. Like, I have the opportunity of working from home. I have the opportunity of being a stay-at-home mom. My husband's income can support us. Now, it would be tight if that's all we were making. I am making some money now through my author life. But if you didn't have that, then it might be hard to take this advice, and you might need to come up with some other kind of fail-safe options. But in general, if you have some luxuries, if you have some wiggle room, take the chance. Because all that can happen is that it doesn't work out, and then you know the outcome. But if you don't ever take that chance, you might look back with regrets and think, what if? But so when it came to writing The Not So Friendly Friend, like Carla was mentioning that I told her a little bit about the story, and my daughter was 3 at the time in preschool. And I knew, having worked with children, that friendship issues is one of the big things that comes up. I did not expect that when my daughter was 3, that she would already be having problems with friends in preschool. And she had this one friend in particular who either was absolutely lovely towards her or quite rejecting of her. And it was very confusing for my daughter. I saw it firsthand, and she wasn't sure what to do. And it was in her nature to try harder then. Oh, I want to earn this person's friendship. I really like this person. I really want them to like me and be nice to me all the time, which I think is a natural kind of human response. We all want to be liked, right? But it was kind of breaking my heart because she was getting let down a lot and feeling her feelings being stepped on. So I have a bunch of psychotherapy books and social emotional learning books from my time working with children. And I went through them, and I went through my friendship kind of selection. And most of those were more on basic social skills. So how to say hello, how to introduce yourself, how to join in with friends, what a nice friend might do. And those are good. And we read through those, but those didn't necessarily help with this specific scenario. So I went online to find a book that maybe fit what was happening for my daughter more aptly. And I couldn't really find anything. I wanted a story that dealt with unkind friends, maybe a bully, but really just an unkind friend, and gave the reader, the tools to stand up for themselves and to set a boundary. And I just couldn't find that out there. So I, on my cell phone in my notes app, just started like writing this little rhyming story and would read it to her. And as soon as I would start reading it, she would come over. My younger son, who was 1 at the time, would come over, and they both really enjoyed it. And it enabled us to then have these conversations about this main character. And it indirectly then helped my daughter to feel like, oh, this is how someone should treat me. This is not how someone should treat me. This is what I can do. This is what a boundary means. And teaching that to a 3-year-old, you might think, oh, wow, that's like way over their head. But if you think about the other concepts we teach children, like love, like life and joy, those are incredibly complex. And if they can learn those, I think they can learn about boundaries too. And I felt like it was giving her a gift to be able to have authority or power or control or agency over her own life and her own experience. this friend might not treat you nice today, but you don't have to take that, and you can do something about it. And I just thought, wow, this is really wonderful. And so I loved my own little story. She loved my own little story, but that's all it was for quite a while. The pandemic hit, schools closed, so the friendship problems kind of went to the wayside. But I happened across the story in my phone in September of 2020 and reread it and thought, hey, this is actually pretty good. You know, sometimes you put something away and you pull it back out and you're like, wow, that was crap. What was I thinking? But but I pulled this out and I'm like, you know, I feel it helped her, and I feel like it would be really good for other kids. And so again, kind of taking that leap of faith, I joined SCBWI, which is the Society of Children Book Writers and Illustrators. They have a thing called The Book, and it tells you agents and publishers who are looking for X and Y and Z sort of genres and these sort of stories. And so I found some publishers that would accept unsolicited and unagented author manuscripts. And I submitted to them. And a friend told me about actually the publisher that I ended up signing with, who is Pesci Publishing. And Pesci is a well-known psychology company, and I've attended their trainings as a therapist. I didn't know they produced children's books. And so when I heard about them, I also applied to them and heard back and was able to sign a book deal, which kind of blew my mind and got the ball rolling. So I submitted to them in September. I think we signed the contract in October, and the book came out September 2021. So it took a year of the entire production process, which is actually short, apparently, in the world of publication. But that was all, again, short. Leap of faith. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, because you want to give the illustrator at least 6 months to do their best work. But if you go with like a HarperCollins or a Simon & Schuster, like those big name publishing houses, it can take 2, 3, 4 years from the time that you submit and they accept your manuscript until a book is actually tangible and on shelves.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. I have the book in front of me, and I'm going to pass it along to my dear niece and nephew who are little, but it's such a simple but profound message, honestly. And, you know, when Sharon and I were looking at it when I was with her, she's like, you know, this can be applied to us as adults too. And I mean, as a coach myself, I am coaching people very, very often about dealing with friendships and disappointments and upset and, you know, people not being nice and like, you know, all of that, even as adults. And so I think so many of the principle of it and the simple messages is relevant to any age, really.
It is. And I've gotten so much of that feedback from adults that read it is like, either A, wow, this hit home for me, or B, write one for grownups, please. But I think it is valuable even as a children's book for grownups because it is really simple. The concept is very simple. The implementation might be more challenging. But boundaries it's such a big topic right now.
Well, and it's simple and it's kind. What I love about it is it's such a kind and loving approach. So like a lot of times when I'm talking to my clients and they are, you know, setting boundaries in their life or just learning to say no, they feel like they have to, you know, be mean, be the B word, and, you know, like in order to set boundaries or say no, and that they have to be like a terrible person. And I always remind them like, no, you can say no with love. Like you can set a very clear boundary with enormous amounts of love. And will everybody interpret it that way? Maybe not. But you can feel really good that you honored yourself and honored somebody else and the circumstance. And I think that people don't often know that or realize that.
I agree wholeheartedly. I see boundaries as a way to be your authentic self in a relationship and a platform for your relationship to be authentic, because you get to say what you want, need, and value, what you don't like, and so does the other person. And if you guys have a mutually respectful relationship, imagine the richness of that quality of that relationship if everyone gets to be their true self. And I think a lot of my clients, especially I've got some clients in their 20s, who are figuring out relationships right now. They haven't gotten married yet. They're dating people in their college years, and similar sort of situation where they're feeling like, well, I don't want to be mean, or I want this person to think I'm a really chill, laid back, cool girlfriend, but they're pretending to be someone that they're not. And then when their truth comes out, trickles through a couple months in, then they're encountering conflict because their partner thinks, oh, I thought you were this person, but actually you have these demands, which is fair and you should. However, you weren't authentic from the start. So it kind of creates that problem from the get-go. But I like to envision boundaries as a white picket fence. And I choose that visual because, like you said, a lot of people think boundaries are mean or aggressive. And I'm not talking about a chain link fence with barbed wire keeping people out from your property. I'm talking about a nice, obvious sign that this property is mine, but it's lovely to look at, right? So it's this idea that you're protecting and owning what's yours, and that's your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, your spiritual beliefs, your sexual beliefs, whatever it is, that's yours. Another person can have their own property. But along with the fence, this white, beautiful picket fence, is you have a gate. And you have the freedom to decide who's supposed to come into your house and your property and your yard and who's not. And that boundaries ideally are firm but flexible. They're context specific, and you have the right to change them when it feels right for you. And so I totally agree. I love this idea of you can set boundaries with love. And really, it is loving to be true to yourself and to be true to your relationship.
It's so true. I mean, I see it too, like with time, like just, setting really healthy boundaries around your time and your capacity, right? Like that's something that shows up all the time with my clients. And that's a really loving thing to do too, because when we're and I used to do this, like overgive and overextend myself and say yes to everything. And I'm depleted. I'm resentful inside. Like and that doesn't serve anybody, including myself. And so I think that I totally agree with you that when you set these healthy white picket fences, I love that, around yourself and your life and your energy and your time and all of that, that you not only honor yourself, you honor other people. And I think that you can, some people want to think that it's like, or think that it's selfish. And I actually think it's one of the most generous things you can do, because when you do that, you have more to give. You can be more generous from, like you're saying, a very authentic place.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boundaries, I honestly think they are your personal superpower. And like you said, you can realize when you're not setting boundaries that, and especially if you're like a very giving person, you give so much of yourself that you don't have anything left. And if you're in a partnered relationship, you may have these thoughts or feelings that you don't express. And you hope maybe that they'll know, because maybe you've been in a 10-year relationship and they, quote, should know. The reality is they shouldn't. And all you're doing is setting yourself up for resentment. And so then, you brought up this topic of being mean. Is it more mean or cruel or less kind to tell someone what works for you or what doesn't, or pretend like something is fine for quite a while until it builds up and then you blow up on them? I would venture to say it's much more kind, to be honest, on the forefront than to have to go through that kind of roller coaster of tension building, crisis, problem resolution. It's easier and better to just be honest from the beginning.
It's so true. And it's such a learned, 21 years into our marriage, we've learned to do that now, but it took a long time. There were many, many years where I was waiting and hoping and thinking why isn't he getting this? Why doesn't he know this about me? He should just know this, right?
Right.
To really learning to communicate clearly and ask for what I need. And that's been such a gift to him, honestly. And so I completely agree with what you're saying about that. So tell us about, did you bump up against anything in this process of writing a book? Were there challenges? Were there points where you wanted to scrap it? What were the hard parts?
Well, I got lucky in that a publisher did accept my book. I think if that hadn't happened, I don't know if I would have wanted to go down the road of self-publishing. I felt like, again, this is even a personal boundary. I knew my limits, and I knew that I am not versed in the world of publication. And did I want to have to figure that out all on my own? Or would I have just kept this as a special story for my daughter? I don't know kind of what would have happened. So I did get lucky in that a publisher picked it up, and they handle the hiring of me, the hiring of the illustrator, the book formatting, the book design, the printing, the distribution. So they handle all of that stuff. What was, I think, a beautiful challenge, because I am creative and I do really enjoy tapping into that side of my brain, is this is a small publisher. And so they let you have a lot of the control still over basically the illustrations and the words and how they marry each other in the story. So I was able to pick the illustrator that I wanted. And then she and I would meet virtually probably once every few weeks to check in on her progress and come up with ideas together. And or she would show me what she came up with. And again, back to me being a good idea tweaker, I'd see something and ask her to try it in a different way. And we had a really good working relationship. But that was all new, because I've never managed anything. I've never overseen something like that before. So it was a really nice stretching of myself. I think the hardest parts have been, we hired a web designer and they did a great job on my website, but now I'm needing to figure out kind of how to maintain that and how to sell books on my site and how to not lose money in the process, because I don't know what the best shipping options are or packaging options. And it's like, again, a bunch of things that are just kind of beyond anything I've ever learned or done before. But I'm always up for a challenge. So even some of this stuff that feels like, oh, I'm overwhelmed, I think that's the feeling I get most of the time, is being a little bit overwhelmed. But usually, pandemic pending, because I've definitely got pandemic fatigue and life feels like the stress level is just higher than it needs to be. But pending all those other things, I'm usually game for a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you have sort of a mindset of like, those are just things to handle. Like your vision and your passion and what you're doing is so much bigger than that. That's what I feel when I listen to you. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah. I think, my mom is a mental health therapist as well. So I think I grew up with guidance from her on kind of having a growth mindset. And maybe I'm naturally inclined that way as well. But so I definitely, I do see challenges good. I see mistakes as learning opportunities. And so, actually, it'd be interesting to ask my husband if I've bumped into anything, because he might be able to recall more than I can actually of, oh, you remember you were stressed about this, or this was hard. But yeah, just moving forward, looking forward, trying to be present in the moment.
That's awesome. Have you ever, I actually had a client call this morning and I was thinking of you because she was talking about just like being a friend to yourself. And that's something like I had to learn to do. Like what? You could like actually be kind to yourself and be a friend to yourself and set boundaries around your own negative thinking, right? To help you move forward with greater ease in life. And I feel like that could be another book.
That's so funny that you say that. So this book 1 is The Not So Friendly Friend. Book 2 comes out in April, and that's about working through anxiety and fear. It's called Fear Not. Book 3, I have not written, but my plan for it is growth mindset, but more specifically, our inner voice and the way that we talk to ourselves.
Nice.
I hear my clients' thoughts. They express their thoughts to me in sessions, and so often they're negative or hard on themselves, and they speak to themselves in a way they would never speak to a best friend or a sister or a brother or a mom or a dad or a family member. And one thing we've done in our family is, because I want my kids so much, I want them to just have this innate, strong sense of self. And I'm sure I'm doing something wrong because I'm only human, but what we talk about is when we go around the table and do gratitude, I make sure that they say that they're grateful for themselves too. Or if we talk about, oh, I love you, Dad. I love you, sister. I love myself, and I love you, Mommy. So we make sure to tie in that we need to be in that list of love as well. I read about an exercise a long time ago that was, if I asked you to write down every person that you loved, how far down the list would you be? And for most people, you wouldn't be on the list because
That's right.
we're not used to thinking that way. And I think that needs to change. And this idea of setting boundaries, again, the idea of boundaries being love, is that you're valuing yourself, your thoughts and your feelings, your wants and your needs. And boundaries aren't there to say, only consider yourself. We're just trying to make an even playing field because most of the time we don't consider ourselves at all, and we only consider the feelings of other people. So by considering yourself on equal playing field with others, you're showing yourself the same love and respect that you show to the other people that you love too. So I think inner voice is definitely a great topic, and that's what I'm planning to do.
See the other books. Yeah. Well, and it's, I know like from my own journey, like just as I softened that voice in my head, and it shifts all your relationships too. And the way you're able to love other people and accept other people. And like, I just feel like it ripples to all of your relationships. It kind of has to start right here at home with you.
It does. It's so important. And especially if you're not in a relationship, you will, and you start to treat yourself with a lot more love, you will attract the sort of person that values what you're valuing in yourself.
That's right.
And I think that's hugely powerful. Yes. And if you're not used to it, you're not practiced in it, and you start to try and show yourself more love and you start to try and set more boundaries, you will receive some pushback because people like status quo. Change is hard. But that pushback is information. It doesn't have to mean a relationship is over. It doesn't mean someone doesn't respect you necessarily. It's hard to adjust. And if you're starting to show yourself love and set some boundaries and you're getting that pushback, that's time for conversations. That's time for logging in your mind, okay, this person doesn't like when I X, Y, Z. What does that mean to me? Does that matter enough to me to have a conversation? Does that matter enough to me to distance myself? Like you said, put a time boundary between us and say, you know what, I'm only going to give you X amount of my time. It's all information. And then you have the power to decide what to do with it. So self-love and boundaries, that's like, yes, so good.
Well, and you just reminded me too that I think so often as a mom or as a parent, like we want our kids to have all that. And we're sometimes, I find people are focused on like making sure their kids get that. And I think one of the best ways is to make sure that you're doing it and modeling it. And I always tell my clients, like the work we do together, I've seen it, like it downloads to their children without them having to teach it or say it, like they're just modeling it. And I don't know if you've seen that in your work, but that's like one of my favorite things to see is that the work you do on yourself, it ripples to everyone around you, and it's awesome.
Yes, 100%. Our children pay attention more to what we do than what we say. And if they see us loving on ourselves, then that's the model from which they will mimic, right? Because they're little monkeys and they want to copy what we do. What we see monkey do. And if we can model for them who we want to be, how we want to be, and how we want them to be, that's incredibly, incredibly powerful and really important. And so kind of going back to the topic of boundaries, I talk with my clients a lot about modeling boundary setting, which they're uncomfortable with. But you can also start small. And an example could be, I guess we're not really eating out right now thanks to the pandemic, but let's say we're eating out in the future again and the table orders their food and the meal that you receive is not what you asked for. A lot of us people pleasers, myself included, might be like, oh, that's uncomfortable. I'm just going to eat it. This isn't what I wanted, but that's fine. But if our children are there, or even for our inner child, you have the right to get the food that you asked for. And there's nothing mean or wrong or demanding about that. And so you can even walk through your thought process with your kids and say, hey, you know what? That's not the meal that I asked for. So when the server comes back, I'm going to let them know about the mistakes so that I can get what I asked for. And that shows your child that you value yourself. You value that you're given what you've requested, especially in a circumstance in which you're paying for that. And then they get to see, wow, okay, my mom or my dad or my caregiver, they matter. They think that they matter. And if they matter, I matter. And it's that ripple effect that trickles down across the family. And it's pretty powerful.
It is. It really is. So do you have any, like, I know that people listening, and the people that I work with, like, so often have, like you and like me, like so many creative ideas and things that we want to do and ways we want to impact and serve. And yes, and then yet we also have like all these demands and pulls on our life and our time. And so were there any, like, because you're juggling a lot, clearly, any like time strategies that allowed you to like really move this forward and be the mom you want to be in, other areas of your life that you could share?
I think, yeah, the biggest thing that you could do is check in with yourself, because we're all different. I am someone that I wish I could like batch my content. So I've got 2 Instagram accounts, a Facebook account, my blog, and I wish I could sit down and like content plan for the month out and figure out everything ahead of time, which would make it easier ultimately with when I then post things. But I need to be inspired. I need to be like in the moment. It's just the way my brain works. So I know technically I'm making things harder on myself, but I also recognize that I'm going with the flow of who I am and the way that I work. And so I think for anyone that's trying to juggle a lot of things, pay attention to what works best for you. There's this principle called the Pareto principle, and it's the idea of 80-20, and it's that 20% of your output produces 80, or of your input produces 80% of your output. So if you pay attention to like, what are the few things that you do that bring you the most joy, that help you accomplish the most in your house duties and your mom duties and in your marriage and whatever it is in your work, then you can start to dedicate more time to those specific things and maybe let some of those other more periphery things drop to the sideline. Again, going back to self-love, I do try and get these sorts of meetings or calls done when my son is at preschool those 2 days a week. But on the days that he is home, I still do work because I matter and my work matters. And it's not at the expense of our relationship, but I'm not like 100% all in on the floor at all times. And really, as parents, we shouldn't be. Our kids' brains actually need adult-free time to let them be these creative, incredible creatures that they are. But so I just would touch in with yourself. Like I have clients who have ADHD and they get really frustrated that they procrastinate a lot. Leaning into that procrastination and being like, you know what, I actually work way better under the pressure, and I'm going to be kicking myself for the week leading up to not doing something because I, quote, should be doing it earlier, but I'm still not going to do it earlier. And then I'm finally going to do it and that's going to be awesome. Relieve yourself of that guilt in that week. I know I'm going to do it when I need to do it. I'm going to do it great. And in this week of shoulds, should be doing it, should be starting it, let that go. Enjoy whatever else it is that you're doing. So just touching in with yourself. How does your brain work? What works best for you? And then be okay with it, because we're all just doing our best.
I really love that strategy because my eldest son used to say, diamonds are made under pressure. And like, that was his style. Like that was his style of getting his work done. And it worked for him. And I know for me, like when I used to when I go and speak, I like used to like just resist my process. Like I wanted to be somebody that was like all prepared, like a week or two in advance. Like I've got it nailed. I've practiced, like it's all done. And the truth, and I would just beat myself up because that was never my process. My process is always that I'm getting inspiration up until the very last minute and adding it to my presentation, even like the night before or morning of. And my practice just looks different. And so I share that with my clients too. Like if leaning into your own natural rhythm is where you can find a lot of traction and
Absolutely.
time. Yeah. So you shared a little bit about what's next for you, but about your books, is there anything else that we missed or that you didn't get to share?
Just kind of launching a little deeper into the series. So the series is called Capable Kiddos Books, and it's utilizing my therapy background and my motherhood personal experience to make books that hopefully are on touch points that really matter and that are going to make a difference. The topic of boundaries is so big. We all have friendships and relationships. So this first book has exceeded my expectations. The publisher did their first print run was 8,000 copies, and the book launched in September. And by November, they had sold out. And
That's so
so
exciting.
it's just kind of like amazing. And I'm so proud of it. And I feel like that means there are that many kids or families that are going to get the help that book provides. And so book 2, Fear Not, How to Face Your Fear and Anxiety Head On, will launch April 26th. It is already available for pre-order on Amazon. So if you Google Fear Not, Christina Furnival, or go on Amazon and put that, you'll find it. And that book is 3, again, I really am trying to keep it simple, but impactful. And so it's 3 simple steps for how to manage your anxiety. And there are a lot of anxiety books out there, and a lot of them are wonderful. What I did differently, or what I felt like I did differently with this, was this book isn't about making anxiety go away. And it's not about, quote, overcoming your anxiety, because this is real life and anxiety comes and goes. Most of us have it kind of all the time right now, and we have to learn that we can handle it and we can tolerate it and we can work through it. And so that's what that book is about. And it's 3 simple steps to kind of deal with it. I think that's going to be really great. And then like we just talked about, book 3, I don't have a title, I don't have any words yet, but I want it to be about inner voice. And those are the 3 of the Capable Kiddos series. But now that we're kind of into book 2, I'm wanting there to be more. And I want there to be topics that are relevant and poignant and important. So if there is anything, you guys listening, that you're like, oh, I need this help with my kiddo or with myself, and it could be in the form of a rhyming children's book, then let Carla know or let me know. But yeah, it's just been a really cool ride. And I wish that for all of you. And if you're listening to Carla's podcast, then I imagine you're making changes and on the right path towards living the life that you want. So I wish that for all of you.
It's so inspiring to listen to your story, Christina, and your books. I'm so excited for the books that are coming. And I am going to be thinking about ideas because I think this could be like, I love the Capable Kiddos, and it is a whole series, and I'm excited to see what comes next for you. And so that you did tell them everywhere they can find you, right? Instagram or your website?
So the platform on Instagram, I have 2 accounts. The one that is a therapeutic mom page, more or less, kind of just like the Real Life Mom. That account is This Is Real Life Mama. And then my books account on Instagram is Capable Kiddos Books. On Facebook, I also have a Facebook page, which is Christina Furnival, Real Life Mama. I am on Twitter. I think it's The Real Life Mama. It's all some variation of that. And then my website is ChristinaFurnival.com. And from there, you can get access to my books. I also give information about the types of therapy that I do. I'm not yet in private practice. I'm a contractor with MD Live, but I can see clients in California if they sign up through that platform and then connect with me, and we can find availability. And then also I've kind of been getting obviously into the world of podcasting and public speaking and news segments and everything. So if anyone is looking to hire, and have me on a program, then you can find out how to do that through my website as well.
Awesome. I love that. And I will put everything in the show notes too. So if you're listening and you want one of those links, you can find that there. And lastly, Christina, what does differently mean to you?
So I thought about this, and I hope I'm giving you an answer that satisfies your question, but I feel like differently means authenticity and being genuine, because we all are different. We all have our own beauty, our own strengths and weakness, our own characters and drives and passions. And by being ourselves, we're different. And I think we live in a culture where we want to follow the trendiest fashion. We are on Instagram and we want our house to look like everyone else's beautiful, very pristine white homes, which I don't understand how anyone has pristine white homes. But we have this worldview that we want to fit in. And belonging is nice, but fitting in is not as important. And I think just being your true, authentic self is being different in this day and age. And that ties all the way back into what we were saying with self-love and boundaries, and just being authentic in yourself and in your relationships. I think that's living differently.
Oh, it's beautiful. So beautiful. What a perfect place to close our call. And I would love to just invite you, when you have that second book out, come back and we can talk about it, and grab a book for those of you listening, for yourself or for little ones in your world. It's really a beautiful, beautiful story and beautiful intention behind it. And I can see, just by knowing what I know of you and spending this time with you, like, you really walk what you teach. And I really respect and admire that. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Sharon, for connecting us again. And let's do this again.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I feel the same way about you. It's so nice to engage with like-minded people in that way. And I can feel your passion for yourself and for helping others. And I'm in awe of you.
Have a beautiful day. We'll meet again.
Sounds good. Bye.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Differently. I hope it stirred your thinking, and I invite you to take one inspired action from something that stood out to you. If you love listening to this podcast, may I please ask you to leave a review in Apple Podcasts? These mean so much to me. I read everyone. They help to grow the podcast, and honestly, on some days, they give me the fuel to keep going. If you want to hear more conversations like this, hit follow on your favorite podcast app and help me spread the word.